On agenda tonight, Infrastructure Minister Tim Crookall MHK gives a warts-and-all assessment of his department. It is one of the biggest challenges in Manx politics, and the Minister is not unique in struggling to get to grips with this very large and unwieldy government department. We talk about the ongoing issues on the Promenade, horse trams, problems at the airport and much more. Minister Crookall certainly has his work cut out, so is he able to deliver your priorities?
Yeah, welcome back to the department. I'm not sure how long it is since you were here, but good to see you and good to have a chance to chat to you. It is a spectacular place to have an office. We shouldn't be here, and I'm quite happy to put that on record at the moment. Strangely enough, I got an email from somebody recently saying, why are you there? Because we haven't got anywhere else to go to. If I could move the department out of here at the moment, I would do. This is absolutely one of the best sites on the island, and this should be commercial or something else, but we shouldn't be here. But we are at the moment, but that's something we'll deal with as we move forward.
And of course, that's one of the many roles that the department has is properties management, and it manages property for the whole of government, and trying to move various people around to various different places to make the most cost-effective use of office space is part of the DOI's role, isn't it?
Yes, and over the last couple of years, certainly from the estate's point of view, government has rented properties, and now as and when they can, we're moving out of those. And certain departments have got smaller, so it's been easier to move them. And if it turns out that in the future that we lose some of the areas from the department here, the divisions from the department here, it might make it easier for us to move. But yeah, we manage all the government's properties, and we look constantly about moving people and coming out of rented properties if possible.
And of course, there's quite a lot of money that can be saved by doing that.
Yeah, as we've seen over the last few years, how much it is now to rent properties, and there's no reason why we should. And I don't think we have got any properties sat empty. But if we can better utilise them, then absolutely we should be doing that.
And I suppose the other element, just finishing off the properties, you also have the housing remit. But of course, there's a housing board being established. So how does that work?
At the moment, it's working well between the department and Chris Thomas as chair of the Housing and Communities Board, and I'm on that along with Laurie Hooper and Kerry Sharp and Marlene Masker. But that's working well together. But I would eventually envisage that will be handed over to Chris and that board to deal with the housing. But it's early days yet, but we're getting there. There's a lot of work going on that.
So potentially you could, as Minister, just devolve or delegate the responsibilities of your department in relation to housing to the Housing Board.
Yeah, that could happen, but obviously we have to take note of, we've got officers that work here and they work for the DOI, and all of a sudden, we don't want to be pushing them over there. We need to discuss that with them as well. Obviously, when you're talking about people's jobs and their departments and their lives, they need to be consulted too. But if that's not a part that needs to be in government, in this department rather, then, if it's the right thing to do, then we'll do that.
And housing, I think everyone felt at the last election that we had a housing crisis. Certainly this was trotted off the lips of practically everybody who stood in the last election. Do you think government's doing enough to respond to that?
It probably doesn't look like it at the moment, but there's an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes. On the Housing and Communities Board, we've been meeting with all the the public sector groups, the charities groups, local authorities we'll be talking to as well. But there's a lot of work needs to be done, and it has started to happen under Chris and the board. And I think over the next probably 6 months, between now and the end of the year, we'll see a lot of movement there, hopefully.
The department is a big department, isn't it? It has a huge level of responsibility. Is it too big?
Probably. There's a lot less now manpower-wise than there was probably in your time and before your time. I mean, we're down to just under 1,000 now. Workforce on the highways is under 100, whereas in your time it would have certainly been around 200, and before that it was up to 300. But now we've got things in here that were never here before. We've just been talking about housing. Properties was never here. Flood risk management, and the list goes on. And we are looking at. There was a Beeman's report done in the last government as to DOI, and we're working on that with the Cabinet Office at the moment. It was their report, and we'll work on that and just look at the structure of the departments and see what we need to be doing, what we don't need to be doing, and finding a good way forward for the island.
One of the key findings of that Beeman's report appeared to be that the department didn't have sufficient human or indeed financial resource.
Yeah, resources is always an issue, and across government they've been cut back over the years, and you know as well as I do, sort of when people come looking for pay rises, we've been told 2% is the limit, and if it's anything above that, then you have to find that from within the budgets from the department, and we have to work with that. And this year is going to be going to be hard because I think we're going to see over 2% this year, and I'm only guessing at that, but I think we're going to see over 2%, and you have to find that from within your budget. So. But we have to work with that because, if the money's not coming in, we can't spend it, and we have to act accordingly.
Is being DUI Minister as difficult as you thought it was going to be? Is it fun? Is it, I don't know, is it embarrassing?
Fun? It is a good department, and I am happy to be here. It's very, very busy. Embarrassing? Yeah, I would admit at times it is embarrassing for the places we find ourselves, the position we find ourselves in. It is hard. We shouldn't be here. There should have been work done over the last few years that hasn't been done, and we're now playing catch up. And it will take us a while to do that with cut in workforce, with a cut in budget and that. But we have to do it. I've said we will absolutely work with all across government to make the island a better place to live and work in, and we will do our best. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination.
And what are the best bits about being in the department, would you say?
Crikey. It would be nice to say there's so many good bits, but there are good bits. I don't know. I mean, you come into work, the people are happy at working. When I come into the office here down at the Sea Terminal, the people are happy. They're happy working for the DOI. They're not happy that we're in the public eye all the time at the moment, but that's, some of that's our fault. It's not always our fault, but, and they get tired of getting a kicking. I feel for them. I really do. I'm here as a politician. I expect to get the kicking. That's my job. They don't expect to get the kicking, whether it's the staff in here or whether it's the workforce outside. Whether they're driving the buses or out on the roads, whatever they're doing. They always seem to get a kicking, and most of the time it's not their fault. And if you've got a problem, please come back to me. Send me the emails. Don't go on social media and give them the kicking and stuff. Come back to me if there's a problem. I want to know if there's problems. We can't fix them. If it ends up on social media, everybody feels bad about it. Yes, I know people feel better because they've aired that issue out on social media, but I don't always read it. I've got so much stuff going on. I don't always read social media. I don't always respond to it because you'd never get off it. But, I try and keep abreast of what's going on. But, we want to know if there's problems. We want to know them in here so we can deal with them.
And in terms of the staff, obviously, constant barrages of criticism is not ideal in terms of keeping your staff happy and their morale boosted. And yet, I think most people, most experts on how to manage staff would say that a happy staff with a high morale is likely to be more productive.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. But people do get worn down, and everywhere that once people know where you work, they will always take that opportunity. I accept that as my job. But even the staff, when they go out at weekends or if whatever the case may be, if people find out they work for the DOI, they'll always get a comment or something like that. And sometimes they just get fed up and worn out with hearing those comments, or even if it's their partners that work for the DOI. And it's been said many times before, middle of winter when the snow hits and they go out to clear it, or when the trees are down in a storm, first port of call is the DOI, and they go out there and they do a super job. But, a couple of days later, here we go, the same guys are doing a different job and they get a kick in. They've got a job to do. If there's a problem, let me know and let the officers know here in the office, and we'll sort it. But leave the guys alone. Come back to us, please.
The department's not shy of courting controversy, is it? I mean, the big issues at the moment. The continuing issue, the Promenade scheme, the airport parking app. And I'm sure there are many others, and we will come on to those. But I suppose start with a positive. Great that the department managed to go down and get the ferry bridge fixed seemingly within 24 hours.
It wasn't quite that quick, and I have to say we don't court controversy. It just seems to come our way, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, that was a job where we were able to. Obviously, we had to wait until the insurers or whoever had been down and looked at it. But you know, we're coming to that time of year. It's TT. A lot of people use that area anyway and visit it. But it was a case of, you know, we've got the workforce. You know, the experts that could go down there and put that right as soon as possible. I wasn't realised you just said, you know, it's been painted as well now. So I'm delighted that we've been able to put that back so quickly and make the island look right as it should be. So we have got the experts, we have got the workforce that can do these jobs as and when we need to. But sometimes we just get held up, and there's so much going on. And as we've seen, you know, I said when I first came in here, I wouldn't give a finish date to the Promenade scheme, and there's still work going on there now. So, and that's 7 months down the road, so pardon the pun. But we are getting there, and hopefully by the end of the next couple of days, we'll see that we'll see that done, if you like. So hopefully then we'll be getting ready for the trams to run towards the end of July. Fingers crossed.
And you know, we're talking about the Promenade scheme. It would be remiss of me then not to ask about that. I mean, what fundamentally went wrong? Because quite clearly something must have gone wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be easy for me to say, you know, it was before my time, but I inherited it, and there was just there's been issues from day one. I think from the start. I think probably we tried to jump. You know, we tried to jump into it too quickly before we were ready to go. I think, and then promises were made all along. You know, I've heard what was supposed to be a 10-year scheme will be done in 5 years, and then 3 years. You know, we're over 3 years now, for about 3.5 years. There is definitely light at the end of that tunnel now. It looks better. It looks far much better than it used to. I still think there are issues with it, but you know, this TT will be an absolutely telling time for us, and we'll be able to, you know, see how it works now. But I actually think it's still quite quiet out there. I think a lot of people do avoid it now, to be honest with you.
And why do you think they avoid it?
And I don't know whether it's the roundels. I don't know whether they find it's quite narrow in places, it's quite awkward, or whether they've just found other routes during the last 2 to 3 years that people are happier coming in that way rather than coming along the Promenade. It will get busier over the next fortnight, that's for certain.
One thing that we don't hear on the Promenade, and certainly makes it less busy, is the happy sound of horses' hooves trotting along. Are we likely to hear that happening shortly?
At the moment, I've said a few weeks ago, I was saying I wasn't convinced that we would hear that happy sound, as you say, or the clip-clop of hooves. I'm now fairly confident that by the end of July, if all goes according to plan, that we'll probably see 10 or 12 weeks of the horses on the prom for this year. We've got to have the railway inspectors report on the tram lines themselves. And then I've said I'll get another report done after that just to make sure. But it looks as though it could well happen this year, yeah.
And it is a little bit like getting a bus from Douglas to Peel, but you have to walk from St John's, isn't it? The way it's currently designed. I mean, the original design, the horse trams were supposed to come all the way to the sea terminal. The money was approved for that, and yet here we are having the trams finishing probably before you get to the busiest part of the route. Yeah,
and that's not acceptable, really. I mean, the job should have finished, really, at the moment at the War Memorial, for sure. It hasn't been able to do that because there's no funding there to finish it. There's no time to finish it. And what I have said now is that if Tynwald gives us the funding to finish it off back to the sea terminal, we will do from where we are now to the sea terminal in one go. There's no point now going from where we are at the bottom of Broadway to the War Memorial in one job and then waiting to do another job from the War Memorial to the sea terminal. If we're going to do the sea terminal, we'll do it all in one. You know, we do not need any more disruption than is necessary.
You're listening to Infrastructure Minister Tim Crookall, MHK. Is there going to be a full sort of investigation after the scheme is finished, the Promenade scheme is finished? Are we going to actually ever get to find out fundamentally where the problems were and hopefully learn some lessons from what has gone wrong?
I would absolutely expect that the Public Accounts Committee would pick this up. I mean, obviously they talk to us about it on our annual chats with them, but I would imagine they would say, you know, they're going to look into it, you know, from day one and just see, you know, we don't know what the the expenditure is going to be yet. We've got a rough idea. We'll have that figure in July. Whether I'll get to July, Tim, whether that or probably October for the overspend on that, but I would absolutely expect PAC to pick that up and do a full inquiry into it, and as you say, find out where we went wrong, where the overspend was, and all sorts of things. And the public deserve that, to be honest with you. We've had 3.5 years of the businesses down there that have suffered, and they're due that explanation.
There's so many elements to this, aren't there? I mean, the roundels is one element that people have expressed concern over. The horse trams is another, and again, you find yourself in that wonderful position of whatever you do, half the people in the Isle of Man are going to think it's wrong, because it's a kind of a 50-50 split on horse trams, isn't it? Should they or shouldn't they?
Is that you wishful thinking on 50-50? I think you were responsible for the horse trams, if I remember rightly. But and I'm in an awkward position too, in some respects, because I actually voted. I was the only one in Tynwald, if you remember. I voted against this scheme, and it was purely on the Promenade doing up. There was no doubt about that. But what I wanted to see was a single track from one end to the other, and if I'd got my way, that would have been done by now. But it is a 50-50 split, as you said, maybe. They are unique. The system we've got is unique, but what we need to bear in mind, at the moment, not only with the horse trams, but with the electric trams and the steam trainers, these things are hugely expensive to run, and you can't just give them to volunteers to do. And at the moment, we're short of money, and we need to look at what we're doing and how we run it. And there will be a review of all the services. There's no doubt about it over the next year as to what's going to happen to them in the future. There has to be.
And the other obvious thing, I mean, government has declared a climate emergency, and yet we've spent all this money on the new Promenade scheme and not put a new seawall in, despite the department suggesting very clearly when the scheme was first being devised that a seawall was an essential element.
Yes, the seawall has not been done. It will be done in the foreseeable future. I had a meeting with Douglas Corporation fairly recently. Myself and the Director of Highways will be going back again to see them fairly soon again to take that on, because it's part and parcel of the job and needs to finish the promenade off. And obviously we need to do the wall basically before we do the walkway, otherwise you'd just ruin the walkway if you did it first. But it needs to be done, so we'll have those conversations very shortly with the Corpy.
A few other obvious issues that you're facing at the moment. The parking app is the cause of great consternation amongst many who don't have mobile phones and don't have apps.
Yeah, it's been awkward. It's taken too long to sort out. What we've got at the moment is a situation where we've now started using the app yesterday. And I'm very hopeful that it will work for us. We will review it ongoing just to see how it pans out. If it needs changing, we've got a chance where we can give them 6 months' notice and we can get out of the agreement we've got. And if it gets to the stage where it's not working and we need to change it or upgrade it, we'll do that. But we had to get something in, and we were looking at replacing the barriers and all sorts. It was just so cost prohibitive that we couldn't go down that route anymore. So we've come up with this. We'll see how it works, and please give it time. If it doesn't work, then we will review it.
And I mean, you used the word hopeful there. Mm-hmm. Surely the public should expect you to be absolutely sure when you're doing these things.
We're as sure as we can be, and I know people have said if you go on Trustpilot, they've got a very bad write-up there, but others have said it's good. And as I said in a couple of other interviews, we've had people phoning into the radio station saying they've used it across and they've had no problem with it for years. So they're a big company, they've been doing it for a long time. So I am hopeful that it will work, and time will tell.
And again, people really struggle to understand how you couldn't manage to find a way in which there would be a machine that you could just put coins in to operate a barrier in the way that we have been used to down there for probably several decades.
Yeah, and if we'd have hunted around, I suppose, and I've had people saying, oh, so-and-so's done it and somebody else has done it, and that it probably could be done. But it's a case of moving on as well. And I know it doesn't suit everybody, but it's a case of moving on. Collecting coins, counting coins, all that has cost implications. And, it is an accepted part now. We've already had apps in Douglas in some of the car parks there, and ANPR, automatic number plate recognition. So we're moving on. And yes, with hindsight, it would have been nice to have coins as well. But it's we are where we are, and I hate that expression. I really do. We've gone with this at the moment, and there shouldn't be anybody that can't use that car park without either using the app or doing it from home before they leave, or if you've got an issue, go into the terminal down there, and the people at the information desk will be more than happy to help.
And while we're at the airport, there are, again, going back to the whole 50-50 thing. On the one hand, people say, well, why is the government running an airport? It doesn't need to be. Surely to goodness that most of what you do at the airport should be being run by the private sector. And then on the other hand, the slightest hint of private sector operation, i.e. putting the parking charges up, and the public are up in arms. Do you think the Manx public would be prepared or willing to accept a lot of the enterprises at the airport effectively being run by private companies?
I think they would do if they thought it was a good solution for the island, and it is something that we will look at. We've got a new director who I'm delighted to say will be joining us in August, and that will be a part of his brief as soon as he knows that, so he may well be looking at it from now onwards. But that'll be part of his brief as soon as he gets here, to look at how we run the airport and how it could be better.
The other element from the airport, I mean, you get off the plane, you head out to the front of the airport and look for a taxi, and they're very few and far between.
There has been an issue. I'm told it's better than it was. Obviously, as we come into summer and the busy period, the taxis hopefully will reappear down there. Over the winter, I know it's been quiet, but it was obviously quiet for the last couple of years too, because there was very few planes. But I have started I met with a couple of the taxi driver representatives the other week, and obviously, the bus service we need to make sure continues to serve the airport well. But we will try our best to make sure that the services, whether it's into the airport or coming away from the airport with the buses and the taxis, is as best as it can be. And
you mentioned the buses there. That also seems to be a problem that you appear to have. Surely these sorts of things should have been predictable. I mean, you should have known. Well, it's not beyond the wit of man to work out that when COVID becomes less of an issue and people start travelling more, that they are going to come to the Isle of Man, and they are going to need to use services like the taxis, and also you need to have a very reliable public transport system. And it would appear that I think the last quoted reference you made was 10 drivers short, which seems like quite a lot.
It is a lot percentage-wise out of our workforce, but that's just par for the course across lots of industries at the moment. I mean, and I will use down at the airport, the security guys, the baggage handling people, companies, they're all short. And it's not just here on the island, it's across at Manchester, Birmingham, and all the other airports as well. But it's just in general, there seems to be a shortage of people at the moment in workforces, and we have to deal with that as well as anybody. But unfortunately, ours has a knock-on effect to the service that we deliver to the public, and that's what hurts, because we can't deliver what we have said what we have been delivering in the past. So at the moment, we're about 10 drivers short from filling those positions, but we've also got some off on sick, which is giving us problems. We are working and doing our best to try and solve that issue, and we've continued to do so right up and past through and beyond TT.
Was there any planning within the department in relation to post-COVID reigniting the economy, everything getting back to normal? Did anyone actually think about how this was all going to work?
Well, as far as services from our point of view is concerned, I mean, we've still had roughly, give or take, some of the drivers that have left and haven't been replaced, but we've still got the same workforce, so we just thought we'd be able to do it. But unfortunately, at this moment, we've got this hiatus of drivers on sick and drivers or not having these positions filled, if you like. So that's given us a heck of a problem. So we're having to look at the services we are providing, and sort of we always do, as you'll know, change the service around TT, well, we'll look at that and what we think we're able to deliver, and have the drivers to deliver that service. But it's going to be hard.
One of the things you referred to there was the new airport director, which is great. One of the first things that happened, I think even before you arrived down at the sea terminal, after you were appointed as minister, was the former chief executive suddenly had a desire to spend more time in the garden. Has he been replaced yet?
We've got an interim, so the proper answer to that is no. We've got an interim, though, Mrs. Curfew, who's been filling that position, and we've also got another senior officer who's been helping out. So the answer is no, but hopefully she's interim now till August, and we're hopeful then that we'll have a full-time CEO come August.
The word hopeful keeps cropping up.
It does.
Is it not unreasonable for the public to expect ministers to know things, to be able to say this is absolutely definitely going to happen?
Yes, I suppose so, but I don't get involved in the hiring and firing of staff at all. As you know, that's the civil service that do that. So I would be very hopeful that come August that we've got a full-time CEO back here, and I'm not the only department that's in that position at the moment. But I'm content with the staff I've got here up here in the sea terminal working with me at the moment with the job that we're doing. What
would be your top three priorities? I suppose for the course of the next year or two while you're minister down here?
Well, hopefully hopefully again, but the Promenade will be finished very shortly. We've got Liverpool Ferry Terminal. I'd like to see the airport sorted out. Obviously, just the services that we provide as the department, that we're able to do it properly as we should be, with the staff that we should, and have the staff to be able to deliver those services. We're here to do a maintenance job. The Department of Infrastructure, as we said earlier, is probably doing or expected to do far more than it should be. But we need to be able to deliver the services that we've said we're committed to say we'll deliver, and we need to make sure that we're not doing what we're not supposed to be doing. And if we are doing that, then we should be looking to give it to somebody else to do.
One of the things you first said when you came to the department was we need to start getting the basics right, and you introduced the concept of a highways charter, and basically instead of the grandiose schemes, and it's of course easy to say this, instead of the grandiose schemes, we'll get back to making sure that the basic road repairs are complete. Of course, the reason grandiose schemes come forward tends to be because it's cheaper to actually do the job, the fix properly, than to have to keep coming back time and time again. But the general principle of what you were saying there is we have a significant roads infrastructure on the island, in places in quite a poor state of repair, and actually that's where the focus needs to be.
And I still firmly believe that. With the draft charter that we've just produced in end of March, I will be going after TT and start talking to all the local authorities. I've spoken to many of them already, but not on this subject. But we will be going back to talk to them. I absolutely believe between us and the local authorities, we've got a huge job to do, whether it's on the roads or whether it's the drainage, the ditches, whatever the case may be, because that's causing so many of our problems. And yes, we've got some grandiose schemes, whether it be the Promenade or even the A5, which we've just put back for another year. But we need to get back to basics and make sure that, the basic drainage in the roads and all sorts works for us, because it does cause so many problems that, a lot of people won't know, but I got so many calls over the winter from people whose drains and things hadn't been cleared, or the culverts and things hadn't been done. And that's certainly not the workforce's problem. They do what they're asked to do, but over the last 2 years as well with COVID, it's been an issue. But we need to get back to doing what is our basic maintenance job, and we haven't been able to do that. And as I said earlier, a few years back, probably 10, 12 years ago, we had over 300 staff, and now we're down to about 100. We can't do what we were expected to do then with the workforce that we've got now. So we've just got to find a better way of doing it. But I absolutely believe it's part and parcel of the department's job to do that.
And you mentioned there the local authorities. One element that we've not touched on is your department's role in relation to local government. Are there any moves there, in relation to, improving the relationship in terms of the highway services, or indeed the whole way in which we collect and dispose of waste on the island? Are there any issues that are cropping up at the moment in the department?
I mean, there's always issues because, local authorities deal with, their own areas, but they also deal with, housing. They've got the waste, they've got swimming pools and things. So, and we work with them on those issues. And there are problems that come up from time to time. So hopefully we can sort those out. But again, that will be part and parcel of the discussions that we'll have, between myself and the officers when we go out to meet the local authorities, to see, is it as best as it can be, or can we change it? And there are always people that will say, there's better ways of doing these things, and we're happy to talk about those and see if we can find that, that's better and maybe saves a lot of money for either local authorities or for the constituents.
An open and frank assessment from Tim Crookall. He has a difficult task ahead, but he certainly appears to understand where the problems are and is not shy of talking about them. But for now, I'm Phil Gorn, Guramayo. Thanks for listening.